what did you actually learn in that women's studies course? Like you said that university is where you got indoctrinated in your own words, but like what did they actually teach you?
So I took, as part of the women's studies minor, I also took critical race classes. I took queer theory classes because this is all interconnected. It's all part of one ideology. What they taught me to do was that the best way to view the world and to interpret everything in the world is through a filter of everything is racist or sexist or homophobic, or transphobic. And so you've got to look for it and be able to find out where it is. So like I took a class on women and religion, and the class starts from a conclusion. The conclusion is that the Bible is sexist. Now we will take the Bible apart and prove our conclusion. But you start from a place of conclusion. And so what they're doing is teaching you that that the only way, the best way, and the only way to look at the world is as a competition between identity groups. And that you can't be, they hate when people say they're colorblind, or they hate when people say they don't treat people differently because of race and sex. This is why they try to convince us all that we all have implicit bias, because they're like, no, none of us are colorblind.
Sounds like an alt-right training camp.
It's totally.
That's why it's so funny, because I'm like, it's the same thing.
It is the same thing. Yeah, we have to. The most important thing I can do when I meet you, this is what they teach you, is to look at what race you are and what sex you are and treat you differently because of it. And that's actually what they did. I mean, we read a lot of like postmodernist writers. We read a lot of, see, I didn't realize that what I was learning was a form of Marxism. And I didn't know, you know why? Because I didn't have enough context from school. And I went to a science and math school. I went to a school that I had to apply to get into. It was free. It was the state paid for it. But for 11th and 12th grade, it was supposed to be for the best and brightest in my state. And you go and live there. It's a residential high school. And I had a great history teacher there, but I didn't have the historical context to know anything about Marxism or communism or socialism.
No, they ignore that. They'll teach all the Nazi stuff and the Holocaust and everything like that. But communism, Soviet Union, Cambodia, any of that stuff, not a peep.
And why is that? Because I think there's a reason why they don't teach it.
I think there's a couple reasons. I think one of the most obvious ones is that in the Second World War, both the UK and USA at some point allied with the Soviet Union. So even at that point in World War, like there was a lot of hush hush about the bad stuff that was happening in the Soviet Union. It was presented to the population of the UK and the USA in more of a positive light. And so the horrors of the Holocaust and of Nazi Germany, Nazi Germany was the enemy, right, of both the UK, all the allies. So that was fine. Whereas the Soviet Union helped eventually to defeat Hitler. So the way that, you know, how they say history is written by the victors. So in some ways that, you know, one of those ideologies and leaders is presented in a certain way and demonized as Hitler and Nazis should be. But most people aren't even aware of the fact that more people died under communism than under Nazism, right? And I didn't know this myself until my early 20s when I actually went and like read up on some of this stuff, and I was just like, whoa, how did I make it all the way through university without even being aware of all this stuff? And then, you know, they had the Soviet Union, then you had you know, Cambodia, you had Cuba, where else has this been done? You know, it's like this has happened. So I think that's the main factor. I think that's the main reason. And then I think the second one is just obviously academia has a huge leftist bias. So they want to show the evils of far right ideology, but because far left ideology is closer to a lot of teachers and lecturers and stuff, whether or not they'd admit it, because it's kind of closer to them, I don't think they want to share it in the same way.
I saw a stat though that said, I think it was like 30%. It was pretty high, something pretty high. Don't quote me, but it was a large percentage of university professors in the humanities who self-identified as Marxists, and that's just the ones who are not afraid to say they are.
Yeah, that's right.
But I think you're right. I think I mean, I didn't learn. You say you learned in your early 20s. God bless you. I didn't learn until my late 30s. Like I'm like I feel like I'm trying to download all these, a bunch of history and philosophy and just things that I shut myself off to because of this ideology. It's like an intellectual prison. I've described it this way before, but it really is. You kind of lock yourself. You lock your curiosity away. You're not actually thinking. You're sorting through information. You're sorting through tenets of the belief system, and you're trying to pick the correct things to say. You're not actually thinking. And so to leave that has just been like,
so how did you,
it's amazing.
How did you manage to stay in that bubble for so long?
That's a good question. A large part of it was online. It definitely was, because I started after college. I started frequenting a lot of feminist message boards. There was one called Chick Click, which doesn't exist anymore, but it was supposed to be just a message board for ladies, but me and some other feminist SJWs took it over and started. I was preaching. We were converting people. I was speaking the good word. This is like 20 years ago. I was teaching people about, look, hey, racism equals prejudice plus power. Okay.
Oh gosh, you're one of those. Yeah.
Yeah. Sexism equals prejudice plus power. And I was like lecturing people on all this stuff that has now become mainstream. Back then people thought it was wacky, but we converted an entire board pretty much.
Interesting.
And I have printouts. Actually, Card and I were joking. We should start giving people some of my embarrassing SJW because of course I saved it because I thought this was all brilliant thoughts that I had.
Okay. Oh, glad you still have it.
Yeah, it's so embarrassing. It's like cringe. Wow. But after that, the message board, just like with social media, you can, I'm sure you know this. I'm just repeating what people know, but you can really severely limit what you're exposed to. And that's what I did. I had a carefully cultivated echo chamber of people in entertainment, which I worked in, and people in activism. I was really skilled at working with nonprofits and SJW nonprofits to promote my clients. So I would have we would have comedians doing stuff for the nonprofits, and nonprofits then pushing the comedians when they were on tour or what have you, or when they were on a TV show. So my whole world was like professional SJWs. It wasn't the traditional entertainment world. It was it was more, I would say, SJW journalists and activists, and those are the people I worked with to push my clients. And so that's all I really saw. And if somebody had a differing opinion, like I had opinions about, I'm sure this is no shocker to people who have certain ideas about what SJWs are like, but I had opinions about people I had never actually checked out.
Yeah.
Like I thought Steven Crowder was just a raging bigot, and I don't think I'd ever watched anything. Like Ben Shapiro is the devil, right? Like, because they don't ever give you the source material. They tell you what to think. You're reading things from Media Matters. You're reading things from Huffington Post that are saying, basically like, here's what to think about Ben Shapiro. They're not that, but that's what they're saying. And here's something he said, and we're not going to give you the clip, the link to the video so you can watch it yourself. We're going to tell you what to think about it so you feel like you've watched it and you're informed now, and you can go argue about something that you've never taken the time to investigate on your own. Yeah. So that's what that world was like. That's
fascinating. So this is cool. It's like speaking to a real life former SJW.